Hi, I'm Chelsea Jackson, and my paper talks about how basically today's society, mainly the white person, has hurt Native American culture and especially their music. Basically, everything today revolves around music. It can be impacted by music positively, negatively, and Native Americans and a lot of other races have seen this common trend to basically where people think that they can Americanize these songs or use them as a popular content or their songs, or even act like they can become one of the Indians and use them in their songs and not even know anything about the culture. And they're honestly just basing these songs off of basic stereotypes. And it's become a trend, and now it's really hurting the Native American society. And everyone's views have changed, I feel like, of these Indians because of this stereotype, the media, education, lack of education, and this basically way people are singing these songs and introducing these songs in an American way that isn't correct at all. One of the main underlying things that you can call this trend is singing red face. Singing red face is where people who are not of indigenous culture believe that they can somehow contribute or somehow act as if they are Indian and indigenous and sing these songs or play Indian or different things along these topics to make them feel like they are Indian or they become Indian. And there's three main things that we get introduced to as a young age of singing red face, and one of them is at Thanksgiving Day. I know at my elementary we reenacted the first Thanksgiving, and we all got to make these vests and these headbands with feathers on it, and then got to put face paint on, and people would learn different songs and basically just reenact the whole day, and for fun mainly, not even for an educational purposes, which was where it goes wrong. I know that with these days and just in general, people learn songs such as singing as I'm a Little Indian, sung as I'm a Little Teapot, and that just goes to show one of the very examples that people don't even realize they're singing red face but are being taught at a young age. People now incorporate not only as for fun, but are using these singing red face songs as education. I know several people taught this one song called One Little, Two Little, Three Little Indian. And it's basically a counting song, and as you count on your fingers, and then once you get to 10, you come back down, and it's just a way of learning how to count. And I included a music video just to show the rhythm of it and how it was used as basically a riddle, and no one even really thought to see how that could be hurtful to the Indians, that it was just some fun educational song, but not educational in the native culture way. I apologize for the informality of this video. I have no experience in making videos, so I'm just going to hold my phone up and show this video. And so basically that is the video, and like I said, it was a true education. People thought they were being educated and helping kids learn, but instead they were honestly just teaching them how to sing red face and basically miss the entire word of Indian and teach them anything the possibility of teaching them if they could. Another thing is that you're introducing these at a young age, these Indian terms and these Indian ways of life, and so as kids with their imagination, and they go off and they play Indian and they think it's just fun and games, that it's a character they can almost dress up in, just like Peter Pan in his movie. For fun, these kids are acting like they're in a tribe and they're their own nation, and they're just having fun. There's no education behind it, there is no actual meaning, they're just doing it to have fun, and that's taught a lot of kids that they can basically just play Indian and it'd be okay if they don't even know who they're actually playing and what they're representing. These are introduced at young ages, and the term unconscious racism is just the racism that unknowingly we have, that we do things based on things we see, things we do in ways of life that we react to, but we don't even know we react to this racism. And I believe this is how those unconscious racisms begin, is because of something like singing red face at a young age, where we introduce them to basically name dropping the word Indian, or name dropping just indigenous terms, and not telling them where they come from or educating them behind these topics. Another topic would be racial antipathy and antipathy. And the main thing listed is Indian giver, the term. And for people who, the main definition of this term would be an Indian who gives a gift and then immediately wants it back. This was basically a long myth of a story passed down over years, and it's come over to this negative term that doesn't even really relate to Indians anymore. It just kind of started with an Indian example and then went from there. Basically, it is now being used, like I said, as a negative term to call people to say, and when it comes to giving gifts. And now it's been used in several different songs. If you can Google just as many songs as you want that include this title, and none of the songs are even about indigenous culture. All of them are usually about breakups, and all have this negative connotation to it. The Indian giver term is a negative connotation term, and if you break it down, giver is a positive word. So in order to make this term negative, that means Indian has to be the negative word in this term. And so even when people are using just the term as a metaphor in songs, it's still just portraying this negative aspect when it's used, and doesn't really add any benefit to Indian, and honestly needs to be changed so it doesn't even have any relation to Indian. So there's no point of still using that as the term. And then one of the main topics I really like about this section is Loretta Lynn. So she had a song, Squaws on a Warpath, and basically it's about this wife who is sick and tired of putting up with her drunken husband coming home and doesn't want to put up with it, and is getting angry and is basically about to cause a war. And this portrays that stereotype of a drunken Indian that they don't like to be obviously included as. And then the wife here is portraying that Native American women are these crazy women who will cause a war and all this chaos, and basically just making it sound like the Native family is very hostile and very chaotic, which is not the case. But what is interesting to me is that Loretta Lynn, I've always just known her as someone who's so proud of her history and her heritage, and is just deep rooted in her Cherokee background. And there are several different ways that you could look at this. I don't know if for some reason that she used this as these were terms in her everyday environment at home. She was raised using these terms. So to her, including those terms in a song is just like any other term that people use as a metaphor in their songs. To her, as an artist, you have clever lyrics, and she just probably knew that she has a background with these terms, and it's something that's never been used before, and it's a way of bringing out her heritage, and that's what she honestly loves to do, and is a way of remembering. And also just being able to, I feel like, relate to her other Native American audiences or friends or anything else. People didn't really sing about this stuff in the popular songs. It was mainly just the mainstream American lyrics, and so I believe it was her way of honoring her culture too. The thing that does hurt is that she probably did not realize that she was speaking to an audience that doesn't have this Native background, that isn't tied to a nation. And so for her, it does mean a lot, but for people who don't know what those terms are and don't have a history with this background and don't have really the education behind any of it, when they repeat these songs and sing these songs in their car or wherever, they're participating in singing red face because they have no education behind it. They aren't even a part of any nation, and they just are wanting to sing the song and kind of be like her. And so I think that's kind of the fault in this, is that maybe she doesn't mean to basically portray her own heritage badly when she is so proud of it. She just mainly wasn't thinking about how people on the outside who can't relate to this and who aren't her audience basically can, how they will be affected by this. And like I said in my paper, she goes out of her way to honor her heritage. She hosts powwows every single summer on her ranch, and all the time is happy to tell stories that her ancestors passed down from the ones who participated or were forced to participate in the Trail of Tears. And so, as I mentioned, I don't believe this was out of ignorance of education or a stereotype or anything like that. Maybe it was just her disconnect from other cultures or other people who can't relate to her culture, and that's kind of where it causes this issue. And I just kind of found it funny that she, just someone who has such a great background and is so proud of her heritage, can come across as someone who's actually hurting her own heritage. She didn't even know. Which is kind of similar to this next topic. Idealized sympathy is kind of something that is kind of, I don't know, I just kind of found it very hypocritical, I guess. Here are people who, they basically are singing these stereotyped misconceptions, and then they're also singing these negative reputations, and they're singing just a bunch of stuff that's portrayed by the media, and they're acting like they're sorry for it, and all they're really doing is saying all the negative things that have been said about Indians and saying it with this sympathetic and sweet tone, like, I'm so sorry we said that, but I'm just repeating it all and don't really mean it. I'm just using this as a song to sing. And, you know, there are several songs that have been passed around, and it's kind of been obvious that there really is no sympathy there. They're just making it sound sympathetic, maybe to get more likes and get more of an audience, and that's really, they honestly don't care at the end. And so that's something that I find is an interesting topic that I've never thought of before, that I guess you think of, oh, they're making a song in remembrance, and it's like, no, they're actually kind of hurting the culture by stereotyping them even more and kind of apologizing honestly for the stereotype that the white people created. So it's kind of indicative, and I just don't really understand why these people would even try if they can't even relate and they don't even understand what they're apologizing for, acting like they're apologizing for. But and the last topic I hit on in my paper, basically I kind of feel like is the root of most of singing red face, or basically anything else with this hurting of the Native American culture and music, is cultural confusion. Maybe there are some people out there that genuinely think they are honoring the culture and the indigenous people, but all they've been passed down and all they know from lack of education and the media portraying the stereotype and all these little things that have gone into just how this has passed down, is that people truly have that in their mindset, that that's what the indigenous people are today, is the pan-Indian culture, and there really is no other like basically individual tribes or individual nations, and there's basically just this one idea, and that's just stuck in everyone's head. For example, there was a girl at the University of Oklahoma last Halloween that decided to dress up as an Indian for Halloween. And when she had complete backlash when she posted on social media and basically made, I think, national news, she came out and apologized, and then in the apology said that she was Native American, and so she didn't think it was wrong, that she was genuinely just dressing up as her culture and thought that it was okay for her. Little did she know that she was dressing up as a stereotype. She was influencing this pan-Indian culture that people already have in their mindsets. And so whether that was a true excuse and a true apology, that she really thought it was okay, this just shows that people genuinely don't even know and aren't even educated properly on the different nations and the background and the history and this world that we have basically taken from them. And that's one thing that needs to go on from here or start up from here, is that there's clearly a lack of education, and this is what's causing a lot of this, and the media is just enforcing all of it. So it's one thing if we have this education and then say Hollywood does decide to make a movie about a fictional Indian character, people will know about it and believe it. But we don't have that education to back it up, and we still have people making movies with this stereotype. And it basically just becomes a combination, and people don't even really know what the indigenous race is anymore. And as people in the videos have mentioned that we've had to watch, that they basically are forgotten about. That all these other races have made movements and get respect, and when there's jokes, they're not allowed to be made towards these races, but people don't care about the Native Americans. And that's something that needs to go forward and something that needs to change. And that's what's great about that episode we watched of Rebel Music, where these Native Americans are standing up and they are trying to do something about their music and their culture. And they're finally saying, hey, there hasn't been anyone to stand up for us in the past, but this 7th generation is going to be the people who stand up, and you will hear us, and we won't stop, and we're going to educate people on our heritage, and we're going to win it back. And I am happy to stand with them, and I will always support them in any chance I can get, especially because I do have some Native American background, which now that I know all this information about how truly just discriminated they have been, it's just kind of sad to see that I am realizing that, and I am a Native American, and I've never even really noticed just how bad the discrimination is, especially when you compare it to other minorities who people stand up for, and no one even really stands up for us anymore. So I'm excited to see where that goes, and I'm hoping that the Native American music and culture and respect and equality can just be restored. And I'm excited for the future movements and hoping that it all goes well and they can truly stand up and have a word.